Have you ever had that moment in a video game where you just have to stop yourself and just appreciate the game sound, wondering what that distant noise was and how it even was made? What has the game developer done to make you feel so immersed?
Christened on Tuesday, married on Wednesday.
One technique used for sound is called Foley, and it's the reproduction of everyday sound effects. These reproduced sounds can be anything from the swishing of clothing to the breaking of glass. This song is one example of many sounds available to game developers through the use of sound libraries. On these sound libraries you can have access to an expansive array of sound effects and music for use. This song is called Revelations by Freddie Hangola. Or you could just do what all the big companies do and just create the music yourself. For example, Skyrim, all the music is created by themselves, or more specifically, Jeremy Soule. This process is called original development. Have a listen. Sounds can differ in something called bitrate. Bitrate is the number of bits per second that can be transmitted along a digital network. Can you tell the difference between the 8-bit and 32-bit version of this famous Pokemon theme? Another difference you can hear in sounds is the sample rate. Sample rate is the number of samples of audio carried per second. Hear this example of the song How's It Gonna Be by Third Eye Blind, played with different sample rates.
I don't care, how's it gonna be? 'Cause I don't care, how's it gonna be?
Okay, that's all well and good, but what's the difference between mono and stereo sound? Monaural sound is a method of sound reproduction that gives the illusion that sound is coming from one position. Great for use for a television. However, on the flip side, stereo sound is a method of sound reproduction that gives the illusion of multi-directional audible perspective. Great for use of headphones. But what about surround sound? Surround sound is a system of stereophony involving 3 or more speakers surrounding the listener so as to give a more realistic effect. Great for use at home. Okay, quick game. WAV, AIF, MP3, OGG. What do they all have in common? You've got 5 seconds. Correct, they're all types of files, but what's the difference between them? WAV files are original master quality and offer more freedom with regards to file manipulation. MP3s are different because they are encoded at 320 kbs TBR, constant bitrate, using a lame encoder. 320 kbs is the highest possible bitrate set in a lame encoded MP3 file can have, and this higher bitrate generally results in superior sound quality as well as a closer representation of the original sound. So basically MP3 means higher quality. The AIF format supports album artwork and full tags unlike the WAV files. That's basically what it does. Files can also be compressed and uncompressed, but what's better? To the average listener, there isn't much difference in the sound quality between high quality compressed and uncompressed formats. Unfortunately, every time an audio file is converted into a compressed format, it's not a perfect copy and it loses information. Despite this, why is compressing files so common? Well, by compressing files, you use less disk space, allowing more room for more fun things. And like I said, quality really isn't not distinctible between the two. So basically, uncompressed formats allow you to not lose any information, and compressed formats allow you to have more disk space on your computer. Humans have created a lot of neat technologies over the years that allow us to play back audio recordings. Let's have a look through history. The year is 1992. Michael Jordan has just won back-to-back NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls, and now Sony has something in store.
And it's as portable as you are. The Sony Mini Disc, the future of tape.
The mini disc was a magneto-optical disc-based data storage format offering a capacity of 74 minutes of digitized audio. Mini disc quickly became the forgotten format as for the time it was too expensive, £463 for its target audience teenagers, leaving cassettes and CDs to dominate the market. CD, meaning compact disc, came about 10 years earlier in the year 1982. The compact disc was originally developed to store and play only sound recordings, but was later adapted for storage of data. The digital audio tape is a signal recording and playback medium developed by Sony and was introduced in the year 1987. It had a capacity up to 120 or 180 minutes. Okay, the next thing I've got to tell you about is MIDI, a musical instrument digital interface, and it's kind of a complex subject, so maybe the best way for you to understand it is by learning what it isn't. So MIDI isn't music, it doesn't contain any actual sounds, and it isn't a digital musical file format like MP3 or WAV. MIDI is nothing more than data, a set of instructions. MIDI data contains a list of events or messages that tell an electronic device, like a musical instrument or a computer sound card or a cell phone, how to generate a certain sound. And another form of audio playback is analog tapes. One example would be the infamous cassette, that is an analog magnetic tape recording format for audio recording and playback. It was released by Philips in 1963, having been developed in Hasselt, Belgium. The vinyl, also called the phonograph record, was an analog sound storage medium in the form of a flat disc with an inscribed modulated spiral groove. This groove usually starts near the end and goes towards the centre of the disc. The vinyl came from the year 1948. But how do you download audio? Well, you can obviously use your hard drive to save physical audio recordings, but do be careful with the means you do that, as some free ways of downloading audio may be deemed illegal in your local jurisdiction. Just be careful out there.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready, now go get going, but don't you?
Throughout time, there has also been different ways of creating sound, even before digital audio tools. Tape effects became big in the 1950s. Different effects like tape delay, which Elvis used back in his day. Tape delay is a type of delay or echo processor that uses analog recording tape to achieve the effect. Back in the old days, producers and engineers created delay and echo effects using tape machines. In sound recording and reproduction and sound reinforcement systems, a mixing console is an electronic device for combining sounds, rolling and changing the volume level, timbre, or dynamics of many different audio signals. Inputs to the console included microphones being used by singers, mics being picked up by acoustic instruments such as drums or saxophones, signals from electric or electronic instruments such as the electric bass or synthesizer, or recorded music playing on the CD player. Another technique is flanging, which is an audio effect produced by mixing two identical signals together, one signal delayed by a small and gradually changing period, usually smaller than 20 milliseconds.
He asked us, "Be you angels?" And we said, "Nay, we are but men, rock."
Multi-track recording, also known as multi-tracking, is a method of sound recording developed in the year 1955 that allows for the separate recording of multiple sound sources. Multi-tracking became possible in the mid-1950s when the idea of simultaneously recording different audio channels was developed. Okay, let's fast forward to the present. Let me tell you about the different ways of recording and manipulating sound using digital tools. One is sound editors, or in other words, audio editing software. Audio editing software is a software which allows editing and the generating of audio data. Audio editing software can be implemented completely or partially as a library, as a computer application, as a web application, or as a loadable kernel module. Wave editors are digital audio editors, and there are many sources of software available to perform this function. Most can edit music, apply effects and filters, and adjust stereo channels, etc. You can also use DSP plugins that can add or enhance audio-related functionality in a computer program. Audio plugins usually provide their own user interface, which often contains GUI widgets that can be used to control and visualize the plugin's audio parameters. What is the difference between synthesizers, samplers, and sequencers? Synthesizers are keyboard-controlled electronic modules that create and modify sound from scratch. Samplers are digital audio recorders that create small wave samples and map them to a keyboard. And sequencers are MIDI recorders that save and play back keyboard events and program settings. To wrap up this in-depth video on sounds, let's talk about the audio limitations of game platforms. A sound processor unit, also known as a sound card, is an internal expansion card that provides input and output of audio signals to and from a computer under control of computer programs. Sound cards date use back to the 1980s with the very first game console, the Atari. DSP, digital signal processing, is the use of digital processing such as by computers to perform a wide variety of signal processing operations. RAM, random access memory, is a form of computer data storage that stores data and machine code and is currently being used. A random access memory device allows data items to be read or written in almost the same amount of data, irrespective of the physical location of the data inside the memory. A software development kit, SDK, is typically a set of software development tools that allow the creation of applications for a certain software package, for example, a video game. FMOD is a sound effects engine and authorizing tool for video games and applications developed by Firelight Technologies that play and mix sounds of diverse formats on many operating systems. And proprietary sound middleware engines are basically where big companies have their own. Pulse code modulation is a method used to digitally represent sampled analog signals. It is the standard form of digital audio in computers, compact discs, digital telephony, and other digital audio applications. Adaptive differential pulse code modulation is a variant of differential pulse code modulation that varies the size of the quantization step to allow further reduction of the required data bandwidth for a given signal to noise ratio.